Democratic Rep. Nadler had his office raided by DHS, staffers handcuffed, accused of aiding and hiding rioters who had been on the ground protesting some earlier that morning. Now, it seems pretty simple. Nothing ended up happening. They came in, arrested. They cuffed the person. Well, actually, let me slow down. They came in and said, hey, we think you're aiding rioters. Let us in. They said no. And they said, then you're being detained. And then went in and said, okay, we're leaving. But for Democrats, it's the apocalypse. Nadler's calling for an investigation. But I say this, my friends, good. I'm glad this happened. We need a DHS, an FBI, a federal law enforcement system that is unafraid to challenge politicians who we know do break the law or aid criminal violent elements. We just had a shocking terror attack in Boulder, Colorado. Before this, only within the past 2 weeks, another terror attack. 2 young people killed in D.C. And of course, the governor of Pennsylvania had his home firebombed. These are far left violent individuals. And if we don't have an administration willing to challenge politicians who might speak out in defense of these violent acts, it's going to keep getting worse. Now, the reason why this matters as it pertains to Nadler is Nadler famously said 5 years ago that Antifa violence is a myth. Now accused his office of helping some of these rioters. Now, I'm not saying he actually did, but I will say this. In my humble opinion, having been covering this stuff for some near 2 decades now, I will tell you, these people are likely coordinating. Democratic politicians, many of them don't participate or actively work with any violent groups or anything like this, but they do cover for them because these people are a component of their constituency. Democrats, they get votes from these people. Now, I love it because I always hear this. They say, Tim, you got to differentiate between leftists and liberals because, we had this woman on last week and she's saying this. And I'm like, nah, because they vote for it. Because prominent progressives, they go on and they say, I'm not in favor of the Democratic Party. Go vote for Democrats. And it's like, well, you just told everybody to go vote for Joe Biden while claiming that you're a progressive who opposes the establishment uniparty machine. How does that make sense? Now, I'll tell you this. Donald Trump is outside that broken uniparty machine. They hate the guy. Not that I think he's perfect, but I have of no illusions that Donald Trump is not a prominent politician in the United States government that's going to enact policies and engage in law enforcement. Dare I say, I voted for it. So the difference here is I will look at Donald Trump's actions and say, I like Trump and I'm going to vote for him. The left says the Democrats are really, really bad. Then at the last minute come out and say, yeah, but vote for him anyway. Because they're liars. They're hypocrites. Many of these people who have celebrated and promoted the violent, claimed they were peaceful protests, turn around and say, vote Democrat, and the Democrats know it. So let's talk about this, my friends. Smash that like button, share the show. Shout out to Steven Crowder and the Mug Club. Welcome to your Rumble morning lineup. I'm your host, Tim Pool, bringing you into that afternoon. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Don't forget to subscribe and share the show right now. Everybody watching, it's the most important thing. We're already dominating the entire live show morning lineup, or daily, nationally. So Timcast IRL is averaging around the second biggest live stream in the country. The Tim Pool Morning News Show, which you're watching right now, we're hitting maybe like number 6, number 7. Rumble has like 70% of the biggest live streams in the country. If you want to make sure that that stays and even improves, everybody watching right now, share the link to this wherever you can. I can only speak for myself. I'll tell you to share every show you watch. That's important. But for me here right now, if everybody watching shared this, we'd be number 1. So I really do appreciate it. Before I get started, my friends, make sure you go to castbrew.com and buy some Cast Brew coffee because it's the best coffee you will ever have. I guarantee it because that's a nebulous and vague statement, but I really like it. I really do like it. Full disclosure, I actually do have Starbucks right now. Hey, sometimes, there's a big market for coffee, but we got Ian's Graphene Dream. We got Appalachian Nights. Of course, use promo code RUMBLE10. You'll get 10% off. Check it out. Here's a story from the New York Times. Yo, what's going on? Aide to Rep. Nadler is handcuffed amid confrontation with federal agents. Captured on video, the episode occurred in the congressman's Manhattan office shortly after the aide observed agents detaining immigrants outside a courtroom. Interesting. I do want to give a mention as an aside. ICE agents are going to immigration courts, waiting in the hallways, and when the judge denies the asylum claim, as they almost always do, these guys walk right out into the hands of ICE, who arrest them and send them on their way. I voted for this. The New York Times reports. New York Times. Federal officers entered Representative Jerry Nadler's office in Lower Manhattan on Wednesday and handcuffed and briefly detained one of his aides. The confrontation happened shortly after the aide observed federal agents detaining migrants in a public hallway outside an immigration courtroom in the same building as the congressman's office. The episode was recorded by someone who was sitting in Mr. Nadler's office. In the video, the officer with the Federal Protective Service, part of DHS, is shown demanding access to a private area in the office. The video is obtained by Gothamist. That still exists? Wow. Which earlier reported the confrontation. Now, I do believe we have the video in question, ladies and gentlemen.
No, she did not. That is not what happened.
That is not what happened.
Crying.
Okay.
What?
Hold on a second.
Give her your contact information right
No,
now.
I'm going to give you time to speak to you.
Hey.
That's what I'm
I'll
going to
speak to
do.
you.
We got you.
No.
I got you.
You're
okay.
I don't have to go.
You're okay. You're okay. You're gonna be okay.
I'm a federal officer. We're here checking on something.
I hate these
We
people.
have the right to check. I'm
Can I
giving
see a
you.
warrant?
I'm not resisting. Stop resisting. You harboring rioters in the office. So there's not a problem. Let's walk inside. Let's walk through.
For what?
Let me see what's in here. Let's go. Come on.
Can you stay in the
Hold
get
it.
away from me?
And that's all. This woman is crying. She's crying. Dude, you blocked federal officers. Now, okay, let's talk about some of the questions here. Do they have a warrant? There is, I forget what it's called, but all of our friends who are law enforcement officers explained this on one of our Rumble rants, that when a police officer pursues someone into a building, they don't need a warrant to continue pursuing them. There's something specifically about that. Now, in this instance, I don't believe there was anybody in the building. So I'm not entirely sure what the issue was here. Nothing ended up happening. Nadler's pissed. He's calling it for an investigation, but I'm going to tell you right away, I voted for it. Listen to that woman crying, okay? It's infuriating. I'll tell you why. The far left has advocated for violence. These people go out in the streets, these leftists, not all of them, not every liberal, I'm not blaming everybody, but you often get these whinging leftists. They will go out and they will hit people. They will throw bricks at people. They will beat people. And then the moment they get caught, they go and start crying like whining babies. Dude, some cops briefly detained you. Calm down. These people are nuts. It can happen to anyone. Nadler rebukes DHS after staffer detained in Manhattan office. The agency said the unidentified staff member was not charged. Indeed, they say the incident was first reported by the Gothamist. We get it. Quote, I'm a federal officer, the DHS official said to a second staff member in the video posted by Gothamist, adding, we have a right to check the office. The second, and in fact, it may be the case because the office is in a public building, and I mean like a courthouse building. The second staff member, who can be seen initially blocking the officer's entry to a private area, asked whether the officers had a warrant, to which the officer replied negatively. The staff member eventually acquiesced, allowing the officer to walk through the area. Nadler slammed both DHS and Trump in a statement Saturday afternoon for demonstrating aggressive and heavy-handed tactics and sowing chaos, not only in his district, but across the country. Yet Donald Trump had no idea these guys were doing this. These are Federal Protective Services cops. These are federal cops. And I just want to stress that these Democrats had no problem with Capitol Police raiding people's homes, going across the country over J6, even when they were wrong. And I didn't see anybody coming out on national television when Capitol Police raided the home of a woman in Alaska simply for resembling a woman they saw in surveillance video footage from the Capitol. They hunted these people down mercilessly, showing up at their doorsteps at 3 a.m., kicking their doors in with rifles when these people were bumbling about at the Capitol. I ain't talking about the rioters. I'm talking about people who showed up after the riot, walking around confused, having their homes raided. And Democrats did not care. Now, what do we have here? Some feds came up briefly detained a woman who cried her eyes out and literally nothing ended up happening. Spare me. As we're dealing with all this far left violence and we said a terror attack, the last thing I'm concerned about is some federal agent knocking on the door saying, "Can I come in?" And a lady saying yes, and he comes in. Stupid. He said, here we go. President Trump and the DHS are sowing chaos in our communities, using intimidation tactics against both citizens and non-citizens in a reckless and dangerous manner. In the most recent and deeply troubling incident, DHS agents forcefully entered my congressional office. They were let in. And handcuffed a member of my staff, Nadler said. Now, to be fair, it's 50-50. They did briefly detain someone. I believe they accused her of harboring, get out of here, fly, harboring rioters who had been there earlier in the morning. Nadler said, adding that he was alarmed by the aggressive and heavy-handed tactics DHS is employing in New York City and across the country. Nah, I'm for it. They're dumping their sanctuary city list. They're saying outright, we don't care if you think you're a sanctuary, you ain't. The New York rep also cautioned that the incident showed a deeply troubling disregard for proper legal boundaries and warned that if this can happen in a member of Congress's office, it can happen to anyone, and it is happening. But the DHS maintained in a statement issued earlier on Saturday that its Federal Protective Service officers showed up at Nadler's office to conduct a security check because they were concerned about the safety of the federal employees in the office after hearing reports of incidents nearby. The statement did not mention the issue of harboring rioters that the officer referred to in the video. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment Saturday afternoon. They say DHS officers identified themselves and entered the office, where they were met by 4 people who remained unnamed in the agency's statement. One of the individuals became verbally confrontational and physically blocked access to the office. The statement of Politico read. Now, I think the challenge here with Warren is that they already have a right to be in the building. Now, I'm sure there's a question about a right to enter that particular room because people should still be protected in their rights. Like, if just because I rent an office doesn't mean a cop can just come in because he got an office in the same building. That being said, there may be some kind of special circumstance considering the DHS has a department office and it's a courtroom in that building. So I don't know for sure. Now, Congressman Jerry Nadler on CNN calling for an investigation, saying, "Oh, heavens me."
Lying story about what happened. DHS was upset that some of my staff members were watching them grab immigrants emerging from an immigration court in the same building, a floor below. And they were upset that my staff invited some of the observers up to my office. They then came up to the office and demanded entrance. One of my staff members said, "You can't come in here, you need a warrant." They said, "No, we don't need a warrant," which is incorrect. And they barged in, and in barging in, one of the officers, a very big, heavy-set fellow, pushed my aide, a very petite young woman, and they then said that she pushed back, and they shackled her and took her downstairs.
Thank you for the context, Rep. Nadler. I'm going to say this. Rep. Nadler's claim of DHS violence is a myth. It's a myth. It never happened. He's just making it up. So goodbye. At least that's what he claimed when it came to violence from Antifa. He said it's a myth. It's not happening. So when you have far leftists roving our streets, smashing things, throwing firebombs, and all of that stuff, and then you want to claim it's a myth, why don't I just say that? But I do appreciate the context here where he says she pushed a cop. That's why she got detained. Okay, nothing happened. These people are lunatics. All right, I'll take a look at this story. We saw this in the morning. FBI charges terror suspect Mohammed Sabri Solomon in firebombing attack on Boulder, Colorado march for Israeli hostages. I know you know the story. I did cover it this morning. This guy was an illegal immigrant. He came to this country, overstayed his visa, and then applied under the Biden administration to stay, and they let him. They gave him a work permit. So here's a man who's here illegally. He, I would argue, entered under false pretenses. He came to this country, which appears to be a tourist visa. I could be wrong, but it was like a 6-month stay. He overstays the visa, and then he says, "I want to be able to work here." And Biden said yes. And then he goes to a rally in Boulder, and I guess they said he was using a makeshift flamethrower of some sort. What does that really mean? He was like splashing people with kerosene or something. I mean, it's horrifying. I don't know what makeshift flamethrower means, but yeah, he's firebombing people. This is what we deal with. Here's another one from the Post-Millennial. Muslim man pleads guilty to firearm charges after planning to kill Jewish preschoolers at Michigan synagogue. Jeez, man. He threatened to even the score. Now, what's funny is, for a while when we talked about Islamic terror, there were a lot of people that claimed that, Islamic violence is not associated with the left. It's something different. And I can't remember who it was. It might have been Majid Nawaz saying that you've got the leftist violence, you've got right-wing violence, and then you have from above, referencing religious ideological violence, which doesn't necessarily overlap with left or right-wing ideology. Well, I'll tell you this. Right now, it does. It is the left that is marching for this. So Greta Thunberg, did you see this? Greta Thunberg putting on her keffiyeh, going on a flotilla and being like, we have to go to Gaza because climate change. And I'm like, what is she even talking about anymore? Dude, I got no problem if she wants to protest for Gaza, like by all means. But this just shows you that it's a grift for many of these people. This chick skipped school for climate change. She has no idea what she's talking about. She goes on a multi-million-dollar boat ride and then which was made of like petrochemicals, by the way, fiberglass and plastics. And then using all this luxury and wealth, she's like, everyone else has to stop using carbon. Right now, it's like 60 million people would die if that was the case, but they're hypocrites. Right now, the left has wholly adopted this cause completely. And where we're currently at is we have to deal with violence from Democrats and from their liberal and far left constituents. Notably, this story about Rep. LaMonica McIver, which I'd like to bring up in this context, as Jerry Nadler is saying, I can't believe that DHS would do this in my office. Yeah? Well, we just had a couple of Democratic members of Congress physically attack federal law enforcement officers. So I don't care to play games anymore. Now, I get these people, these liberal types, disaffected, whiny liberals who are saying things like, but we must maintain the rule of law. The rule of law has been gone for a long time. There's nothing to be maintained. I'm sorry. I mean, it's a little bit hyperbolic. My point is this. We as a nation cannot have Antifa firebombing buildings for years, shooting at people, killing people, firebombing Teslas, shooting into buildings, shooting into people's cars. That's what they were doing during the BLM riots. It's only 5 years ago, running up to somebody in Provo, Utah for no reason and shooting the driver. This stuff happening all the time. And now where we're at is Democrat on camera punching federal law enforcement. So when the news comes out that some DHS guys went to an office, knocked, got into an altercation with some lady who was briefly detained, I am not sweating in the least bit. But to these liberals, they're saying things like, Trump is crossing the line. It's unconstitutional. I'm just like, where were you in the past 4 years when they were arresting Trump's lawyers, falsely accusing him of crimes, raiding his home under false pretenses, giving Joe Biden, despite the fact they knew he committed a crime, giving him a freebie and saying, hey, but he's a well-to-do old man with a bad memory. I am not going to sit here and advocate for Donald Trump to do anything unconstitutional. I'm not going to say it's good that these conflicts are happening. I'm only going to say I do not care for these whiny liberals who are like, but Donald Trump has crossed the line. No, he didn't. The line was crossed a long time ago, and now there's no line to be seen. This is where we are. Check this out, where things are going to be ramping up. U.S. Homeland Security removes list of sanctuary cities after sheriff's criticism. President of Sheriff's Association says non-compliant list violated the core principles of trust with law enforcement. Interesting. It's time to start the raids. It's time to start the deportations. I got to talk to Tom Homan last week, and he said, we're deporting them. You're getting out of here. We're not waiting around. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security removed the list of sanctuary states, cities, and counties from its website following sharp criticism from a sheriff's association that said a list of non-compliant sheriffs could severely damage the relationship between the Trump administration and law enforcement. DHS on Thursday published a list of what it called sanctuary jurisdictions that it deemed were included in areas that have a policy of limiting cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. The list prompted a response from the National Sheriff's Association, which represents more than 3,000 elected sheriffs across the country and generally supports federal immigration enforcement. Sheriff Kieran Donahue, president of the association, said in a statement on Saturday that DHS published a list of alleged non-compliant sheriffs in a manner that lacked transparency and accountability. Donahue said the list was created without input from sheriffs and violated the core principles of trust, cooperation, and partnership. Donald Trump had called for his administration to tally apparent sanctuary jurisdictions in a late April executive order, saying the lack of cooperation amounted to a lawless insurrection. Indeed. The reason why they're doing this, albeit with a little bit of a hiccup right now, they're pulling the list, but I still think they're moving in the right direction. Trump saying this was an effort to lay the groundwork to invoke the Insurrection Act so he could go in and enforce the law. The DHS website listing the jurisdictions was offline on Sunday, an issue that Fox News host Maria Bartiromo raised with the Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem in the talk show Sunday Morning Futures. I saw that there was a list produced. Now the list I don't see anymore in the media. Do you have a list of the sanctuary cities that are actually hiding illegals right now? Noem did not acknowledge the list being taken offline, but said some localities had bristled. Some of the cities pushed back. They think because they don't have one law or another on the books, they don't qualify. But they do qualify. They are giving sanctuary to criminals. Indeed. Yeah, one of these criminals just apparently murdered some people. The feds are charging that guy in Colorado with murder. Now, they've not released information on the victims, but the assumption we can make is that somebody has lost their life. And I think it's disgusting that anybody would try to defend the practices of the Biden administration. It is insane to me. I talk about how I didn't used to believe in evil when I was younger, and I do now. And I'll give you an example. I can understand or make the argument any direction as to why someone would or would not support an illegal immigrant. However, in this capacity that we are dealing with right now, there isn't one real argument to be made. This is why the media lies about everything. The reason why the left is lying, the Democrats are lying, is because there's no functional argument to be made. I'll give you guys a recommendation for some content. Go to rumble.com/TimPool or youtube.com/Timcast and watch the last full episode of The Culture War, which was about young men leaving the left and leaving the Democratic Party, for which I debated this woman who was a liberal. And I told her over and over again, the sophistry does not work. She made the argument about transgender issues being, that being a woman is just a performance, that women look a certain way, and therefore, no one's buying it. The sophistry is fake arguments to try and convince somebody. This is what they're doing. So let's talk about illegal immigrants and how the liberals have to operate. Give me one functionally logical reason for why criminal illegal immigrants are allowed to be here, even the ones that are violent. They don't get deported. Okay. Now that you don't have one, now what arguments could we try to make? Economics. We need a mass influx of illegal immigrants because our economy is hurt. We don't have the incoming youth labor force because people aren't having kids. So we need to bring in workers from other countries. Interesting argument. Now explain to me why you're not deporting the criminals. There's no answer. They can say, these people are asylum seekers who are fleeing danger. Okay. Why aren't you deporting the criminals? About that. Why are you fighting so hard for the criminals? What do they have? Just lie about it. Because there is a reason. There's one real reason they can't admit. Democrats want every single illegal immigrant in here, criminal or otherwise, so it will boost their congressional representation illegally after the 2030 census. It's the play they made last in 2020. It's the play they're going to make again in 2030. Now, they can't come out and tell you that. They can't come out and say, we only have political power because we've cheated over the past 30 years. But I'll say it like this. The reason why they're violent, the reason why they lie, aid and abet criminals is because they only get by through cheating. Now, I'm not talking about illegal immigrants voting in elections or anything like that, which maybe happens to some degree. I am talking about the fact that based on the number of illegal immigrants in this country, Democrats may have upwards of 10 extra congressional votes and 10 extra electoral college votes. That means right now the congressional makeup should be 12 plus Republican, giving them a clean majority and a capability to pass tons of laws that are pro-America. But they can't because Democrats give them extra seats. They bring in illegal immigrants, they won't deport them, and then they end up with more seats in California, largely, and other sanctuary jurisdictions. Indeed, we are then left holding an empty bag. This is entered into congressional record, and I'll show you guys here from Nadler. Give you an example of who he is and what he represents. Rep. Jerry Nadler says Antifa violence in Portland, a myth. Just a myth. And this is at congress.gov, entered into their record, because it's not. Quote, I ran into Jerry Nadler in D.C. and asked him to disavow the Antifa violence and rioting in Portland's response. That's a myth. It's true, Mr. Fletcher tells Mr. Nadler in the video, there's violence across the whole country. Do you disavow the violence from Antifa, what's happening in Portland? There's riots. That's a myth that's being spread only in D.C. I can't stand these people. They are liars, they are evil, and they gaslight. Nadler knows that when he goes on CNN, when he goes to these media outlets, and he says it's a myth, he knows he's lying, but he knows that the older folks watching that believe him. And that's the one demographic that is largely anti-Trump. So when DHS goes to his office, suspecting they may be aiding and abetting criminal rioters, I say, okay. And then some woman is accused of shoving a cop, so she gets detained. The cop asks someone if he can come in. She lets him in. What's the problem? What's the problem? Nadler's like, they needed a warrant. Yeah, okay. No, I'll agree with you there. But she let him in. The one chick was accused of shoving a cop, and he didn't even get her for assaulting an officer. They just detained her briefly and left. The other lady let him come in. She let him in. They walked around. I do feel like with Kash Patel, we got big news here. Going after top officials, making the arrests, taking the action, publishing the documents, the cascade is just beginning. So I got no guarantees for you. No guarantees. I don't know if Kash and Dan are to be trusted. I trust them, though. I'm saying, I don't know what I can tell you. I'm confident that we are going to get proper action. And you know, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be everything you could hope and dream for, but it'll be something. And the fact that Kash has already made these moves, shutting down the Hoover building, ousting top officials, calling for lie detector tests. He publicly stated Comey's responsible for the largest criminal conspiracy. I do think we are going to get action from the FBI, going after the corruption, no longer tolerating violence from these Democrats. And I say good. That's what we need to be doing. Now, my friends, no guests today, but we do have another half an hour for you, so smash that like button. Share the show with everyone you know. If everybody who watched right now shared this video, we'd be the biggest news show in the country. So if you like the work that I do, I really do appreciate it. Let's dominate the top of those charts in the live streaming and make something great. There's big changes coming in this country that I'm very excited to see. One is the actions of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, obviously. But we've also got Pride Month is over. Corporations are dropping all of this stuff. We've got big moves in the media landscape that is not all bad. The Democrats are playing their Project Sam game, but I think we're going to see them move in the other direction. I think the writing's on the wall for the big companies, and they know, hey, look, if we're going to be on the right side of history, it's not going to be woke. You go that route, you go broke. So once again, smash that like button, share the show, stay tuned, more to come. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all in the next segment.